Trigger warning. The following content may include sexual content, excessive or gratuitous violence content, Build-A-Bear Workshop content, death and or dying content, naked Mitch McConnell, and doom scrolling. If you are offended by the aforementioned content, please stop listening and go ahead and give a 5-star review anyway. If you are not offended, you are probably a terrible person and have discovered your people. Welcome, new listener.
You're now tuning in, so get ready for your mindless and sometimes mindful hosts, Josh, Jenn, and their very special guest for the morning. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Mindless Morning Show.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Mindless Morning Show. I'm your host, Josh. I'm here with Jen, and we have the beautiful Edwina Frances Martin. Now, I want to clarify this before you go search her up. Like we did. She is a public interest lawyer on government relations, nonprofit management, and strategic communications, and not an author. Not an author. So if you search her and you see a book, it's not her. So, Edwina, tell us how you're doing today.
Oh, hello, Josh. Hi, Jennifer. I am great. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you on your show. This is a real treat. And it's fairly cold in New York City today. But we're better than Buffalo, which got 3 inches of snow.
Oh, wow. I actually have a friend in Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of
They
snow.
have the shovel out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, not a fan of snow or cold.
We're like both in warm
Yep.
places.
She's in Texas, I'm in Florida, so we keep it hot around here.
Oh, yeah.
Are you near Orlando, or are you in a different part of Florida?
I live directly in Orlando.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So, and I well, first let me establish to our listeners, if you're not watching, Edwina has come on looking absolutely fabulous today. She has made us severely underdressed. We look like a bunch of homeless people doing a podcast.
But we did it on purpose to really, show off how radiant you are, because you are very radiant.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, we see you're a Disney fan. I see the Mickey ears, and I used to work there for about 7 years, and I will say I do not have any bit of collection of Disney. I'm not as big as a fan as you, but so
working someplace and visiting someplace are vastly different experiences.
Oh yes,
that's so true.
Yes. And I have to say or ask, are those ears for each time you've gone, or did you buy like all of those in one trip?
No, I buy them periodically throughout the year. We actually, we have not been to Disney World since 2014. We had a big trip planned for September 2019. It was going to be my first time back in 5 years. We were staying for a week. We had killer reservations. I really cannot articulate how many hours I spent working on this vacation. And then it happened to coincide with a hurricane. I can't remember the name of it. And the airport shut down. It took a couple of days for it to open up. So basically, by the time I would have gotten there, half of the vacation would have been over. We would have missed a lot of experiences, and we didn't know what to expect. Would it be windswept Disney, or would it pass over? So, we had a small window of time to cancel and get all of our money back. And we decided to cancel. And of course, they weren't hit very hard, but still, because of the trajectory of that storm, and islands sort of, not far from Florida were really, rammed by this storm. So, I think we made the right decision. And then it just, now we're in a pandemic. As much as I enjoy Disney, I don't want to go there and walk around wearing a mask. That just doesn't seem like a lot of fun to me. And
No.
You
so
have to get
I'm
one with a
gonna-
smile printed on the mask.
Right,
Way more fun with a smile.
I have to show you a mask I have that has that. Hold on one
Oh
second.
my
Oh.
God. Yes.
That's awesome. She's got like a whole wedding dress on right now. I feel like
Dude, her entire room is so beautiful. It's like a little boutique.
oh wow.
It's a fancy
funny.
smile. And a nose. I love how it gives you a nose
Isn't it
too.
great? This was hand painted by an artist on Staten Island. I can't remember her name, but since last March, I've gone to one play. It was an outdoor play by the put on by the Staten Island Shakespeare Theater last September. Two Gentlemen of Verona. It was fun. We were seeing theater. We were outside. It was safe. And they were selling these beautiful masks as a fundraiser
I love it.
at the event.
That's
That's
awesome.
amazing.
I forget what country it was. There was an artist who was hand painting masks, and they were doing it to where it would match the actual person's face. So you almost couldn't tell they were wearing a mask. It was pretty cool. He was doing the
Or creepy.
a little bit of both.
That's also the stuff of horror movies.
Like somebody's telling you really bad news, and your mask is still smiling, but underneath you're like, oh man. Yeah,
But it
so-
would help with that resting bee face, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You have
for sure.
that problem, which I do. Like I have to smile or I look mean.
So
Well, yeah, you're looking non-mean face to me.
Well, if you ever want to like know what your face does for an entire hour while you're listening to somebody, you YouTube yourself and then watch it, and you're like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
I need to not do that.
Yeah, I'm sure that can be an experience. I've been
Yeah.
told I have a very expressive face. So I'm not always conscious of when I might be making a face. But the fact that you're making a face doesn't mean that you're making it at somebody or what they're saying. You know, you could be thinking, oh my God, I got to take the garbage out, before it starts raining. There could be a million.
Damn it, my kid's
going
waking
on in
up. Wait, so who is we when you said we were going to go to Disney? Who's we?
My partner, Mickey Burns.
Okay.
Nice.
He's the person that introduced me to Disney as an adult. The first time that I went to Disney World, I was in my 40s.
Oh wow.
And I didn't want to go. And he kept saying, I think you would like Disney World. And I just poo-pooed it. It seemed silly. I was like, well, I'm a grown-up. Why would I want to go there? And then one year, when we were like particularly busy, we wanted to take a trip. We wanted to go away. And this is before Disney became quite as mechanized with the planning that it is now. And you could still sort of go and be spontaneous. And so we decided last minute, let's go to Florida in August. He talked me into it.
No.
Stayed at the Beach Club Resort, which is just a stone's throw from the back entrance of Epcot, the World Showcase. And we had an evening flight. We got in late because it always rains and everything's always delayed. So I think we got in at like 8. We ate a quick dinner. Then we just walked outside. It was warm and tropical and beautiful. And we walked to the gates of Epcot, and there was like nobody around. There were there were no locks or anything blocking. And so we just walked in and we walked completely around the World Showcase. I'm sure something like that could not happen now, but the music was playing. We saw a couple of people, cleaning up or something, and they waved at us as we strolled around. And I was hooked, ever since then.
I will say Epcot's really cool, but since you stayed at the Beach Club, did you guys at all walk over to the yacht side for the Yachtsman Steakhouse?
Yes.
That place is amazing, is it not?
Yeah. The food is delicious. I think it's one of the best restaurants in Disney World.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the steaks there are probably the best thing I've ever put in my mouth. I mean,
Oh my
that sounds a little weird, but
so bad.
but yeah, because I used to work as an HVAC tech for Disney, and I'd work around different properties, and I worked at Yacht Beach and Boardwalk there for some time, and working on their kitchen equipment. So I go and fix their equipment. They're all happy. The chefs are happy. They're like, all right, cool. Hey, what do you want?
Have
I'm like,
something to eat.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, give me that.
You're like, can I have a few more, please, for the
Yeah.
for the red?
If you insist.
Yeah, that was a year of me gaining quite a bit of weight working there, because everyone there was all the chefs at that location were so nice. They're always like, oh, you want some? You want some? And I was like, I'm not going to say no, dude. Like,
Ever.
yeah, I'm not going to come here and pay the amount of money for it, but sure. Because I mean, that's crazy. It's crazy, but very good. Very good.
Steak is like unbeatable, man.
Oh,
like
yeah.
melt in your mouth steak.
Yeah.
That's what I want for dinner now.
But aside from Disney and all the other random stuff, tell us about your career as an attorney. How does all that work out? Because I really don't know much about that.
I wanted to be an attorney, actually. I'm like
Yeah, well, I always tell people it is never too late, and there is night school and things like that. So, we need good people in the law, and we need people who care about people and people who want to make the world a better place and who want to inform people. Those are exactly the personalities that I think we need going to law school. But when we were chatting before we started the show, I had mentioned that in some ways it was a surprise path for me. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was definitely one of those kids, the month that you asked me, dictated what I wanted to do. I jumped to thing to thing to thing to thing. And slowly the law came to me because I felt that it was the best match for sort of the things that I was most passionate about and most interested in. I wanted to go into public service. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help make systemic change. And I wanted to be also sort of a part of the change. And I really felt that law school was the best way to reach that goal. I was actually in college, I was an art history major. And I think you can tell, like, art is still...
I was going to say, you remind me so much of my mom. And my mom has like hat boxes and like loves sneaky style. She's an artist, but you remind me.
It's very much an important part of my life and my being, and I hope will always be. But I chose NYU Law School after graduating from Williams College because NYU's motto is a private institution in the public service. So, I went and I visited the school and I just really liked what I saw. They had lots of public interest fellowships. Nowadays, if you look at their website, they must have like 30 more. And, when I went to school, there were like 5. I mean, now it seems like there are 30. So many opportunities for people because law school can be, a bit share, as they say. And it was an incredible experience. I had the best professors and made some of the closest friends of my life. And I think just really found my calling. When I left law school, I clerked for a judge. And do you guys have friends who are lawyers who clerked? Clerking for a judge is really going and doing research and drafting and helping the judge in working on his or her decisions. Right. And I clerked in the federal appellate court in New York. It's called the Second Circuit. And it was incredible. I was there for 2 years. Incredible experience. I worked at a big firm after that. Is
it normal to jump straight into federal?
No.
I know. I was gonna say, like, that was like a skip, right?
I mean, clearly she's overqualified.
I told you I'm an internet sleuth lawyer. Okay, I know something.
It actually came through a scholarship that I got from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I received a newsletter, and remember, this is before like the internet. So finding hidden opportunities wasn't as easy back then. But I had what was called an Earl Warren scholarship. And with that scholarship, in addition to money to help pay for school, I got a newsletter. And the newsletter had job openings. And I saw an opening for a position called a motions law clerk. Now, there are different types of law clerks. You can clerk for a specific judge, or you can clerk for a court, and you're still doing the same kind of work, research, writing, and drafting. For the job that I applied for, it was specifically to draft memoranda related to pro se motions and motions before the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And it was fun. Once again, great office, wonderful people, wonderful supervisor. She became a mentor. And through that job, I met one of the judges of the Second Circuit. I drafted a memo that he liked on a particularly different case. So one day he called down to the office and said he wanted to see me. I was not happy with what I was wearing. I had on sort of a crazy outfit because we weren't in court that day. And I'm just going to say, it was paisley and it was just sort of all over the place. And I had on a big floppy hat, and my hair was a mess underneath. And this judge had a reputation for being sort of tough. So I was like, oh my God, this is the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. And I went up there, like I read every decision that I cited. I was ready to talk about the case law and everything else. And I was a nervous wreck by the time I got up there because I was expecting him to grill me. And, I don't know what I was expecting. And he sat me down and asked if I wanted a cup of tea. He asked me about law school and what I liked and my favorite classes. He asked me about my parents and my family. And then at the end of the conversation, he offered me a job.
Awesome.
To come and clerk for him for a year. He said that he had been planning to retire or had been thinking about it, had decided not to. And so he hadn't interviewed, hadn't looked around, and then my memo came up. And so that's why my federal clerkship was 2 years instead of the typical one. It was 2 separate clerkships, different types of clerkships and very different experiences, but very amazing experiences. But I did have a lot of law school debt. And there weren't the loan repayment programs back in those days that, people coming out of school have now. So I did what most people do. I went to a big firm and I worked hard on paying down debt. But I also tried to enjoy the world because we worked really hard. I went through a period once where I worked 6 months without a day off. I literally didn't know what day of the week it was. So I made sure to make use of my vacation time, and I traveled around the world. I would take once a year or a 3-week vacation and just go someplace I hadn't been before or that I really wanted to visit. And as time went on, I became a little despondent because I wasn't doing what I'd gone to law school to do. I didn't feel that I was following my calling. And for me, the bottom line of money doesn't get me excited. That is not what makes me wake up in the morning. Helping people and trying to make the world a better place is what brings me joy and raison d'etre. So I started reaching out to friends from law school and contacts, and building up experience, my resume and experiences so that I could make the transition to public interest work, which I eventually did. Now, when I was at the firm, I was a litigator, and I did a number of pro bono cases, some for, I actually worked with the Queen's District Attorney's Office, doing some appeals, but I also worked on the defendant's side as well. So it was a very interesting, varied experience.
I always wonder about...
And I've worked on some interesting cases for the firm as well. I don't want to make it sound like it was awful. It's just, for me, I got more out of the pro bono work.
Is there a case you've worked on that we would know about? Or been clerked for?
His name was Lawrence Pierce, and he passed away last year. Okay. He was a lovely, lovely man. And no, there wasn't really any case that I worked on that you would know. Bankruptcies, and none of the appeals that I worked on, the pro bono appeals, were high profile. So, I hope they made a difference for the people that it impacted, but they weren't high profile cases.
Did being a defense attorney kind of make you question sometimes, doing that field of work? Because I know, obviously you're sometimes defending an actually guilty person,
Well, the only time I did defense work were for a few pro bono cases. I was a corporate litigator. So, I worked on bankruptcy cases and litigation coming out of deals gone bad and things like that.
So it's not super morality, tugging or anything
it depends. It depends. I worked at a big firm my second summer. It was actually based in California, not in New York, because I was thinking at that time of moving out to the West Coast. And I remember, an assignment working on an employment manual that was very anti-employee, I guess is the best way to put it. So for me personally, that's sort of morality challenging,
you're icky. I mean, that's got to be tough though for defense attorneys of all kinds. I always think
well, everyone is entitled to zealous representation. And, under our system of jurisprudence, despite, sort of the hyper, sort of atmosphere that we're in right now, you're still presumed innocent.
Right.
Not presumed guilty. You're not supposed to be presumed guilty.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of defense attorneys at Legal Aid and other sort of public defense places. And some people might, sort of characterize their clients, but they do not. And I try not to, because we don't know what their world and life experiences are. And frankly, some people do, get into trouble, maybe get around the wrong people, can do bad things. But that doesn't mean that they should be thrown away or that they're not entitled to zealous representation. So it's 100%. It's not the path that I wanted, or that was not a good fit for me, because I enjoy, and I think I'm better at, bringing people together around a common cause and building something. But for people, who are sort of the real fighters, mm-hmm. and who have a passion for it, I really admire them.
Oh, no, yeah. I just think it'd be a really hard job, especially if, it's not every case that you have the person that is just an awful person and you're like, wow, but if you had that and you're just having to zealously, defend them, It would wear on me as, wear on my character eventually.
Yeah, but you remember, they don't enter it thinking that they're an awful person, because once again, that's sort of judging their life experiences and the things that maybe led them to a certain place. And, there's so much judging going on right now, right? And
oh, no, I agree. I do agree. I just also am like a true crime freak, so I know some very awful situations that I'm like, I would not want to defend that person. But I know that's not the everyday thing, and I do agree everybody should be treated equally until they're proven otherwise. So tell us,
unless you're Dahmer,
your projects and how you're bringing people together.
Let's see. Well, after I left the firm world, I landed at an organization called Legal Services NYC, which is an entity that provides free civil legal services to low-income people. So it's civil only, no criminal. So housing, domestic violence, immigration, public benefits, things of that nature. And I actually went there as their first communications director. So I wasn't handling cases, but what I did is I created a communications program for them. I coordinated the opening of a new office in Staten Island because they didn't have a presence here. I worked with staff to train them on, sort of integrating media into advocacy where appropriate. Mm-hmm. And I ended up doing a lot of legislative advocacy, which some people call lobbying, but I hate to call it that because of the connotations around it. But I really enjoyed it. I'm working on policy and legislative advocacy. And one of the things I did was help to raise funds for civil legal services. And I worked with colleagues in fellow programs around New York City and around New York State to actually help create new programs like for unemployment insurance benefits. Think of how needed that is right now with all of the people who have lost their jobs and who've been struggling with these processes. So I helped to raise millions of dollars to help people around New York State, and that was very satisfying. Wow. That's awesome. And I also worked on legislation. And there's a piece of legislation that I was involved with that eventually, many years later, it took about 12 to 15 years, I think. So it was after I left legal services, but it actually finally came into being. And we may have been the first place in the country, I'm not sure now, to provide almost sort of universal access to counsel in the context of housing. Oh, wow. And it's an effort to reduce homelessness by bridging the barriers that lead people to lose their homes to begin with. Because if you can keep somebody in their home, usually whatever the problem is, they can sort of work through and turn it around. And as long as they aren't kicked out while that process is going on, they won't enter the system. So it was sort of incredible to be a part of that movement. It's called Civil Gideon. Gideon, of course, created the right to counsel in the criminal side. And so for issues that involve the basic necessities of life, like housing, there's a movement called Civil Gideon to create a right to counsel for matters like that as well. And it's, so it's, those are the things, that I've been involved with that have just been incredible. And I was able to meet, incredible people along the way. When I was coordinating the creation of Staten Island Legal Services, I met this woman named Debbie Rose, who is a community advocate. She eventually became the first African-American elected official on Staten Island. And she's a city council member representing the North Shore of Staten Island in the New York City Council. And I got to know her like my first month in, because that was one of my first major projects when I was at Legal Services. And we just, you know, I don't know, you know how sometimes you meet someone and you know you're going to be friends and you click immediately. That's how it was when I met her. And so we became friends. We stayed in touch. And after she was elected, you know, I told her that I would love to come and work for her, but she, you know, had staffed up and, you know, there wasn't any space and blah, blah, blah. And then one day I got a call from her. So I need a counsel and I need a legislative and budget director. And I jumped at the opportunity. And I ended up spending, oh my goodness, 8 years at the city council, working for her, working on legislation that has benefited millions of New Yorkers, giving protections from pregnancy discrimination to protections for caregivers. And by caregivers, I don't mean sort of the people who are hired to take care of usually sort of disabled or senior people. Not that they don't, you know, deserve protections, but the caregiver legislation that we worked on involved people who, because of circumstances, you know, are taking care of a sick spouse, an ill child, or a sick parent. And those responsibilities may mean that they need some adjustments in their work schedule, you know, and things of that nature. And so we worked on, you know, what I think is groundbreaking caregiver legislation and so many other things sort of in between. But one of the things I'm actually most proud of working with her on, and I know I'm going on and on, so
it's okay.
No, just do it.
You know, with questions. Staten Island is the smallest borough in New York City. But we're like the size of Atlanta. So outside of New York City, we would be like, you know, major. But, you know, we have 500,000 people. You know, Brooklyn has 2 million. So, you know, New York City, we're a small borough. You know, a lot of people who live here feel that we are often the forgotten borough, if you've ever sort of heard that saying. It's actually often not true. If you look at like the resources we get per capita, we actually do better than the other boroughs. The numbers will be smaller because we're so much smaller, but per capita, in many ways, we do better than other boroughs. But at the same time, there's so many sort of resources and things that Staten Island was just traditionally overlooked for. And I knew from my years at Legal Services that the city council had a number of initiatives to benefit all New Yorkers, all residents of New York City. But oftentimes there weren't agencies that were large enough or, you know, who had sort of the access to people in the right places to be able to benefit from these initiatives. So one of the things that Councilwoman Rose, you know, has done in her years in the city council is actually make sure that groups in our district on the North Shore of Staten Island get access to these initiatives. And we've been able to bring in millions of dollars of resources that weren't coming here before. So, you know, it's her legacy, but I'm really honored to play a small part in that.
No, that's amazing.
Sounds like you're the one making it really happen. You're the glue in it all. She just put it.
No. She is the person who makes it happen, and I worked at her direction, you know. But we're so close that there were times when we could like finish each other's sentences. So, I understood what was important to her also. And my job was to make sure that the things that needed to happen leading up to it happened so that these things could come to fruition. And, in 2019, I left the councilwoman and embarked on a new adventure. I was appointed by Judge Matt Titone, had just been elected the surrogate of Richmond County, and I was appointed the public administrator of Richmond County. It's, working with the estates of persons who pass with no family and no will, or any other advanced planning documents to sort of tell people what they want to happen to their things or how it should be allocated. And there is an office like mine in almost every county around the country. There are some places that don't have them. And I always wonder sort of what happens when people in those places die and there's like sort of no one who's looking into those things, that helps to prevent blight, for example. When someone passes and there's no family and there's like a house that maybe doesn't have a mortgage on it, that becomes the problem house on the street. I've been able to help settle the estates of houses like that, for example. Dealing with that real property, as well as finding family members. We are a first responder agency. And so we have been very, very busy with the pandemic. Most agencies and most people anyone who can has been working remotely. We were back in the office I would say about a month or so after the shutdown. We weren't in every day. We started off very slowly, being back in the office once a week and sort of building up from there. And we still have a staggered schedule so that we're not all there at the same time, which has been very practical because we have had COVID exposures of staff. And when that happens, they have to get tested. They have to quarantine until they get the results. There's a whole protocol that, we developed before reopening the office. And, by having a staggered schedule, you ensure that the entire office doesn't shut down. And hopefully that the entire office doesn't get sick. I mean, knock on wood, we've been very lucky. And so far, when those incidents have happened, everything is, the tests have been negative and, we've been able to move forward. But it's a scary thing when it happens because there's still so much, even though we have the vaccine now, there's still so much we don't know. And I do, know people who have been who have been diagnosed with COVID after being fully vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated now, and I wouldn't even have thought about getting tested. When I got my second shot, it was like, I'm 2 weeks away from never having to have that thing stuck up my nose again. Oh and I can't tell you how happy that made me because I was getting tested since last September, pretty much once a week.
Oh, wow.
And it's improved. At the beginning, it was really, it was a horror story. It was a horror story.
Not the first way they did it. I had the second way that they did it because I had a baby during COVID.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they definitely had to test you. And then the spouse just acts like basically that they have COVID. They always have to be masked and whatever. But the lady said, this wasn't even the worst that we had to do. The time 2 weeks ago, we would have to stick it up. And they said, if we didn't have blood on the Q-tip and you weren't forcing it to get away from you, that we weren't doing it right. And I was like, What?
Doesn't sound right. Yeah, I don't know.
And there was a horror story, and I think it might have been from Texas.
Oh no!
Of a man who was punctured or something because they went up to.
Well, probably because that's how they were teaching them.
Yes.
If you don't dig their brains out. Wow.
When I saw this whole pandemic start playing out, and I saw on the news how they're testing it, and I'm like, what are they doing? And I'm like,
your brains. Literally.
Why is it doing my wife? She's a nurse, so she was explaining it to me, and I was like, there's got to be another way. And then I recently heard that China is doing butt swabs, and
I heard that too.
I'm not gonna lie, I'd much rather just have a little stick in my butt than up my nose, because I feel like I can handle that a lot more than anything happening here.
You know what? If we're all being honest here, I think I might feel the same way. And I would never, ever say that in any other circumstance.
And I do apologize for being crude. I just want to be honest here.
Oh my God. It was
all right. So moving on. There's one other thing that my office does that I want to talk about, only because it's unique to Staten Island and to most public administrators' offices. One of my predecessors from a number of years ago, John Carney, started a program of making sure that any indigent persons that came under the administration of the public administrator were buried on Staten Island instead of sent off to Hart Island. Now, this summer, since in the United States, the first major outbreak was in New York City, there was a lot of reporting of a lot of issues that I know went around the world. And one day, my older sister who lives in the UK calls me and she said, "Are they building, burial trenches in the parks in New York City? Is that what you guys are doing there?" And she was so upset and she was beside herself. And it's because there had been a story that picked up a statement from a city council member who said, we may have to start, because the funeral homes and the morgues were overwhelmed, they might have to start sending bodies to Hart Island, which is Pauper's Field, for New York City, and actually was opened shortly after the end of the Civil War in about 1867, somewhere around then. So that was sort of picked up as, people will be buried in parks, because Hart Island technically is a park. Okay. And right now it's run by the Department of Corrections, but they're in the process of transferring control to the New York City Parks and Recreation Department. And so, there were articles flying all over the place that sort of, would give one the impression that they are about to start building burial trenches in Central Park. But sending people to Hart Island is just it's a difficult process for the family and friends and loved ones who want to visit the person afterwards. There was, I know, a real uptick of people being sent to Hart Island at the height of the AIDS crisis, for example. You can only go there, a few times a month. You have to arrange it through the Department of Corrections. And unless you are, I think, an immediate family member, you can't even sort of go close to the trench where they might be. You have to sort of be on this sort of viewing stage. So, there's, a lot that's emotionally difficult about that process. For sure. And the people are, they're buried in wooden boxes and trenches, several, people deep, by people who are under the care of the Department of Corrections. So many aspects of the Hart Island experience are in the process of changing. I think, it may have been slowed down because of COVID, obviously, and the shutdown and sort of everything else. But the planning for it started in 2019 and perhaps even before then. But even when it is transferred, so for example, now I think that, there's more transportation. So you aren't as limited as you used to be in the number of times you could go or how you could visit. But the truth is that, somebody buried in Hart Island is not the same as being able to go to a cemetery in your community that you can basically go to anytime. Right. So Staten Island has been unique and empathetic in that, this is a program that has existed for 30 years. I wish that we could, sort of help with the burial of all indigent people, but we can't. We can barely afford to do the ones that are under our authority, but we can at least ensure that they are buried with dignity in a cemetery by cemetery professionals on Staten Island. And that has been a really incredible part of my job, believe it or not. It's what I was the most concerned about. It was what I worried about the most, sort of the emotional toll. But in many ways, it's been very uplifting to be a part of that process. And I think I'm going to cry a little bit.
Oh, no.
To humanize these people who perhaps have been abandoned. And, it's not just indigent person whose estates we might have authority over. There are a number of people in nursing homes, and we all know that there were a lot of issues with deaths in nursing homes from COVID. And they aren't necessarily indigent. They have money. What they don't have, however, is family. A lot of times it's people who outlived everyone. And they're alone. I had nursing home staff come to burials because they became the family, sort of these people. And oftentimes they didn't have any burial plan in place. Sometimes they did. These paid plans have become more popular now. But we still, get a number of estates where there is no prepaid plan. There might be an elderly cousin or something, but not someone who can really handle it. And there's enough money in the estate to pay for the burial and maybe some other bills and expenses that the person had.
To be clear, burials are ridiculously expensive. I mean,
yes.
And if you don't I had an ex and his uncle passed away at 40, right before his 40th birthday, but he didn't have any of that set up for anything and they didn't have the money for it. And they ended up actually sending his body to be studied for science, I believe. And then they cremate and send it back. But I don't know if we had a program like that around us because I feel like they would have looked into that.
Yeah, we're unique in that way. You won't find it in many places, I think. And I've been really proud to continue that tradition. So it's not a funeral, which involves many other things. But what we provide is a burial with a grave site ceremony.
No, that's beautiful,
awesome.
I think.
And kudos to you because clearly you're just an amazing down-to-earth individual that is practically an angel during all these really hard times, and you're doing things for people that it's just unheard of. This is the kind of shit that should be on the news. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, this is what people need to hear. These good stories. Yeah, because you certainly are doing the work that not many can handle or anything, and you're just killing it. And you look amazing doing it too. Holy crap.
I was gonna say she actually literally looks like an angel, like halo and all. Beautifully glowing angel. Oh, you're so cute. I love it.
Yeah.
And you are, like Josh said, doing wonderful things. Things I think that people don't even think about needing to be done because it's just stuff that gets, I mean, if they don't have family who talks about it,
Yeah.
So I talk about it quite a bit. One of the things that the judge told me he'd like to see is more public outreach from the office so that people understand what a public administrator is, what we can and cannot do. And I also just talk about the importance of advanced planning. I work with a legal services program here in New York City called the New York Legal Assistance Group. And we do this class called Advanced Planning 101. We did our first one last summer. I want to say it was in early July. I can't remember the exact date. The next one we're doing is coming up on May 10th. It's virtual. It's going to be part of a week of programming with my local chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are the Staten Island Alumni chapter, and every year in May, Delta chapters around the world dedicate a week in May to what we call May Week. And we celebrate community, education, advancement within the community. And it's just a usually really uplifting set of programs that look at education, look at community issues, that look at scholarship. And so the first program that we're doing this year, and I happen to be the May Week chair, is Advanced Planning 101, which will be me as public administrator with NILAG. And we're going to be talking about healthcare proxies, living wills, powers of attorney, and wills. And anyone who's interested, although if you don't live in New York, it probably won't be helpful for you. But for anyone from New York who is listening, you can register at dstsi all one word, .org. And we're also going to have a program on this process that's new to New York City called ranked choice voting. As well as redistricting. We're going to have a poetry night. And we've created a video in tribute to the 25 years of our scholarship program. And we're going to premiere that video on YouTube and Facebook and possibly Instagram.
Why not Times Square?
Right. Can't be that much, right?
So it's been a real joy to work with my SOARs and community members to coordinate that.
That's
Have you, because the only reason I even know about living wills and all that stuff and the burial is I did a Dave Ramsey course of Financial Peace University, and he goes very in depth about it. And I was so serious that I went to my parents and I was like, I need to know where all of your stuff is. Have you planned to pay for your? And my dad's like, oh, stop it. And I'm like, no, I'm dead serious. He still hasn't done it, but he really drove home how important it was at any age to do that for your children, or else they could be left with so much.
Absolutely. When I was growing up, we used to go, my mother had a huge family, and we would have Sunday dinner at my grandmother's house, her mother. And so it would be my uncles and aunts and cousins, and, so kids everywhere and adults everywhere. And one of the things that my aunts and uncles loved to do sitting around the table was talk about, where the stuff is going when they pass. And, they were all I don't know if it's just that they were very pragmatic people, but, they were all prepared.
Or they had very dark humor.
And they planned. And, so, for those that we have sadly lost, there was like no craziness, no searching for things. My father passed in the sort of earlier part of the 2000s, and he was, an organized person like that. And as he became more ill, he made sure that everything was pulled together. And he had served in the Air Force and was very proud of that and was honorably discharged. And he wanted, a color guard at his funeral. And I'm laughing, not because that was funny, but of course, the minute that he passed, and I'm telling you, there was this like tin box of stuff that was always a topic of conversation, and all the important papers were in there. So the minute that he passed, that tin box could not be found.
Oh no!
And with his like discharge papers and sort of all this other stuff. That was really necessary. I think his birth certificate was in there. He had it all organized, and he and my mother had a joint will. And so we tore their house apart looking for the papers. And happily we did find them.
Oh, good.
One of the things that I will share with your listeners is do not put the papers in a safe deposit box in a bank. I know that a lot of people think that that's the best way to safeguard things, but the reality is that it is very difficult, actually, for your family and loved ones to access that safe deposit box after you pass. So unless you make some sort of specific plans with the bank, like designating, who can access it or whatever, and I don't know what that process would be, or even if it exists, you can get a fireproof, little box that won't take up too much room in your house. Make sure it is fireproof, just in case.
I got one of those right there.
Yeah, and put your important papers in there and pull your important papers together. Have your healthcare proxy. Think about doing a power of attorney. At least look into it, because power of attorneys can be structured however you want. And the same is true for healthcare proxies and for living wills, as well as for wills. I think in the fall, we're going to do a class on trusts, and it's just going to be on trust. And I know an attorney I met not too long ago, who I think will be a great instructor for it. Because trusts in some ways might be the right way to go. You can structure it so that you have instructions for things to do immediately after you pass and how you want to do it. And a trust doesn't have to be probated in surrogate's court the same way a will does. So, like I have a will, for example, but I've been thinking lately, maybe I want to, and I'm not, Joe Q millionaire or anything like that. But, part of the problem is that people think that they don't have that much, what? I don't have enough to bother with all that. I don't want to spend the money, et cetera, et cetera. And, I can understand, but you can work with lawyers that you can do a payment plan with, so you don't have to, pay it all at once. But it's worth sort of that money and that time in advance for things to be taken care of the way you want when you're gone. And if you love your family and you want to avoid drama for them when you're gone, having those things taken care of makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I just can't believe the amount that you go through to make these things possible, because that's incredible work that you do. That's not easy work. So, I mean,
oh, thank you.
And I mean, to have a kind of like an uncertain path of how you were going to get into it and to where you're at now, it absolutely incredible. Because I still don't even know what I fully want to do, but here I am, and so I think that's really awesome, because you've accomplished a tremendous amount, and I think you're really going to make a very big positive impact in the world, and hopefully, like, between what you're doing, we'll start to expand more so countrywide or globally, even. So, because it certainly.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Well, it's been just a pleasure visiting with you both, Josh and Jenn.
Thank you so much for being on and spending the time with us.
Me.
Will you come back and just, smile again at us? Yeah, really, I feel energized and stuff. I'm like, can you just call me every morning and smile at me?
and we're going to have to follow you on Instagram, because I'm really hoping to see all the different outfits you got, because it's just, it's insane.
I will say that a friend once said to me, "Oh, I follow your fashion blog." And I was like, "We don't have a fashion blog." And she said, "Oh, I mean your Instagram and Facebook page."
Awesome. Can't wait to see it then.
Smart and fashionable to boot.
I just want to ask one last question. If there's anything that you want to say to our listeners or viewers, any kind of message that you want to spread to the world? Anything? Other
than all the messages you're already spreading.
Yeah.
Advanced planning. Think about, take a little time to plan for the future.
Cool. Will do.
Important.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure. And again, all links that you would like us to share will be in the descriptions of our show. And so anyone will have access to them. And if any links that were mentioned in this show will be in the description as well. So again, I can't thank you enough. It has been a real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, I'll say the website for my office. It's nyc.gov/RCPA, which stands for the Richmond County Public Administrator.
Will all the classes and stuff you were talking about be on that website, or is that a whole separate?
On that website, only the program that I'm doing on May 10th. But if they go to the Staten Island Alumni Chapter webpage, all of the program information will be there.
Perfect. Awesome.
Well, thank you again so much. Yes.
It was great speaking with you, and you have a great rest of the night.
You have a great night. Stay mindless, everyone.
And a little mindful.
Thank you for listening to the Mindless Morning Show. We appreciate you picking us out of the many great podcasts out there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell to get notified whenever we release a new episode or bonus content. Now go enjoy the rest of your mindless day.